10 years.
Test.
10 years.
All right.
10 years.
That's awesome.
Okay. Sorry, I just need to start the Zoom.
Yeah.
Here we go. We got one person who's popping in on Zoom, so we're gonna get her on and then do a screen share. Of course, it's always technology that's like the hang up, right?
Do you know how much my day I spend on Zoom?
I mean, you live and die by Zoom when you work from home.
Right over it.
All right.
By your internet connection, really, in your router.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh yeah. Did you have to like bump up your
The jam?
capacity?
I was just thinking that.
Pump up
Work
the
pays
jam.
$100 a month. Like reimburses $100 a
I
month.
think he's too young for that.
For what?
No, Devin understands pump up the jam.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Slowly was cooking. I was
There
like.
you go.
Do you have Cox or Spectrum?
Spectrum.
Yeah, Spectrum. It's
We have
funny.
no choice, right?
Cox is,
Yeah, we have
it's like a map. You zip.
no choice. You're
Which
stuck with it.
sucks.
Yeah, we like your neighbor, like one fence ahead
Yeah.
of you or something. They have Cox, but they can't insert it on you.
I lived in
It's
Deerwood.
like they divided.
Yeah. I
So
literally.
there's competition, but there's really not.
There's
Well,
no.
you know, the Verizon guy just came to our house, and if you have a Verizon phone, it's like $30 a month to use their thing.
Mhm.
And you can just plug it in and take it with you anywhere, but it's only like 400 megabytes
That's
a
not
second.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Well, it's enough for
Cox
the
business.
kids can
I
use
mean,
that.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
I
Like.
have Spectrum business. It's not bad.
And if you're a veteran, you get another 30% off. So if you have the Verizon, or $30 off, so it's absolutely free.
I have T-Mobile. Sadly. Well, not sadly. I actually thoroughly enjoy T-Mobile.
Well, they do the job of letting you make phone calls, right?
They really do.
That's the only job you're hiring them to do.
Exactly. And plus, like, because I got T-Mobile when I was going on a deployment, because they have their international plan is by far the best. So I was like, hey, like,
You think so?
text and internet for free. And so if you're on Wi-Fi, you can make FaceTime calls and
Yeah,
like,
we do
audio calls.
WhatsApp.
Bingo.
Go
When I was
Yeah.
deployed,
Get online.
it was $1 to connect and $1 a minute.
Yeah, that's disgusting. And that's why I was like, T-Mobile, let's go. It's free.
All right.
All right.
Welcome everybody. I'm excited you're all here. We are waiting for Anita on the on Zoom, so if we hear a little ding, we'll know it's her. And I think I need to I may or may not need to let her in. So at any rate, welcome to Nutrition 101, guys. The purpose of today is really to give you guys the tools and the tricks that you need to be able to embark on this fitness journey and be successful, really. We all know that you can't out-train a bad diet. So I want to make sure that we talk about the full gambit of different things, right? We're going to talk about basic calories in versus calories out. We're going to talk about how that's not always the rule, right? That there's hormone production that can actually interfere with that. We're going to talk about some of the major pitfalls, some of the chronic illnesses that are associated with poor nutrition. We're going to talk about the sports psychology that can drive some of that. So it's going to be pretty comprehensive. And then we're going to get into some practical application food logging tools that you guys can take home. That way, it's just like managing your budget, right? If you don't know how much money you have in the bank, you really, you can't formulate a strategy or a plan on how to use it, right? So your calories are the same way. So we're going to get into it, and at any point, I encourage you guys, if you have questions, shoot your hand up, and I would be more than happy to open it up for discussion. This isn't, I want you to think of this as more of discussion-based rather than lecture-based, okay? Fantastic. So I want to start and there's one big rule that kicks off this whole thing, right? And it's actually not just a rule, it's a law, right? The law of conservation of energy. So this is an inescapable law that presides over all of our nutrition. Everything that we're doing is based off of this, okay? Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transformed. Okay, so we're gonna delve in a little bit more with what that actually means here in a second. So the first law of thermodynamics, which is basically that law of conservation of energy, right? To sum it up, it states that energy or calories consumed must be either burned or stored, right? Because calories, what is a calorie? Who can tell me what a calorie is?
Unit of energy.
It's a unit of energy, exactly, right? So just like we measure distance in miles or kilometers, or we measure, food in ounces or fluid ounces, a calorie is simply a unit of energy. It's the amount of energy that it takes to raise the temperature of water 1 degree centigrade. All right? So if you take a piece of fruit or whatever into a lab and they burn it up, and they can actually measure how much energy output that piece of food generates, okay? And that's how that's how our nutrition facts know, like calories and all that kind of good stuff, right? So we've got a choice every time we put calories into our body, right? So if we wanted to gain weight, then we need to eat more calories than what we burn. If we want to balance our weight and maintain it, then we need to burn and eat the same amount, right? And vice versa. If we want to lose weight, we need to burn more calories than what we eat, right? That's probably really basic. Everybody's heard that before, right? Has everybody had that experience with your nutrition?
No.
So today we're going to explore some of the reasons why that it might be deceiving, okay? It's not as simple as everybody might say, right? So, again, this is just like reiterating what we just talked about. If you're burning 2,000 calories and you're eating 1,500, here's what we know. We're actually going to get into some math here, right? I think I mapped it out on this. Where are we at here? Here we go. So there's 3,500 calories that equal 1 pound, right? So if I take 3,500 and divide it by 7, that gives me 500 calories a day that I would need to eat less than what I'm burning in order to lose that pound a week, right? The rule of thumb, and this is a very, very broad rule of thumb, it can't apply to everybody. It's just what we were taught in college, right? Bare minimum is we can only take in, like, I can only recommend that you take in 1,200 calories a day, no less. Why would that be? Why wouldn't we take less calories in?
Because it'll mess up your metabolism if you don't eat enough calories to keep your body running, right?
Well,
Is that the question?
Sort of, yeah, but there's a basic reason as to why, right?
Diminish.
Your cells are being starved. Here's the thing, guys. Here in the United States, we live in a chronically overfed nation, right? We have so much food, but it's void of nutrients. So we're not eating food, we're eating food-like products, right?
Well, they even say that.
What's that?
They even say that on the packaging, like cheese. It's like, it's a cheese product, but
Right.
it's not. It's like cheese, but it's really not.
So we have to understand that we are over-consuming calories, but our cells are starving. They're starving on a cellular level because they're not getting the vitamins and the minerals that they need to sustain health, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. That creates what's called oxidative stress, but I don't want to foreshadow too much. All right? So let's talk about that law of conservation of energy. Okay, because I want to really reinforce this. What makes a law a law? It has been proven time and time and time again. The law of gravity. Every time I drop these keys, they're going to accelerate towards the ground at a negative 9.8 meters per second squared. Every time, right? In a vacuum. So, like, that is tested time and time again. It's never been disproven. So the law of conservation of energy, the first law of thermodynamics, same thing. Never been disproven. It's really, really important to understand. So does calories in versus calories out work? It does. It does. But there's other factors to take into consideration. Factors that affect your metabolism, right? They affect how many calories you're burning. Because all the calorie calculators that are out there are extraordinarily misleading. So your Apple Watch, your Garmin, your all that stuff. It's like, oh, great job, Matt. You burned 3,500 calories today. You get to eat an extra X amount. Well, hold the phone.
It's a lie, huh?
Yeah, like I said, it's misleading. All right?
Make you feel bad.
So why do so many people struggle? All right? So it's just a simple mathematical, let's see if I can speak today. We track calories we consume, what are we missing, right? So these are the big metabolic variables, okay? You've got your weight, right? And believe it or not, your weight is a metabolic variable in and of itself, right? You might not realize that fat actually produces hormones that make more fat, right? So the more fat you have on your body, the more estrogen it produces. Estrogen is a fat-producing hormone, right? And so if you have a high body fat percentage, it's actually killing your testosterone and, you know, causing you to put on more weight, okay? Nourishment we touched on, right? So your cells are being starved. Hormones, right? We kind of briefly touched on that a second ago. And then there's psychology. And believe it or not, the sports psychology of it all really is such a driving factor that most trainers, most coaches, most nutritionists, they don't even touch on it. And so we need to get to the root of some of the issues that are holding you guys back. And that's what I want to do, is I want to facilitate breakthrough here today so you can have that aha moment and we can start getting to the real problem, okay? So that being said, let's talk about cell nourishment first, okay? So low quality foods that lack essential vitamins and minerals leave us in a state of oxidative stress. Now, oxidative stress, if you think of, everybody's seen the depiction of like an atom, right? And you've got a nucleus in the center and you've got protons and electrons that circle around that nucleus, right? Now, I'm not going to get into like the Bohr, like electron cloud and all that stuff, right? We're just going to like, let's not get overcomplicated, but I want you to think about that outer electron, right? The outer electron that doesn't have a pair destabilizes the entire atom. That outer electron that doesn't have a pair is what's called a free radical. So I know a lot of you guys have probably heard that term. It's a buzzword in the fitness realm, right? People are talking about, oh, eliminate free radicals and eat berries and do this and do that, right? Well, that's true, but most people don't even know what the heck a free radical is. Well, those free radicals, those free floating electrons that are causing cell destabilization are basically causing cellular death. The cells are dying and they're basically killing all the cells around them as well. So we have to understand that there are certain nutrients that your body needs to be able to lend that electron to make the pair, to stabilize the atom, to keep the cell nourished so that you can continue to repair damaged tissue, you can continue to keep a high boosted metabolism and all of the things. Does that make sense, guys? Mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome. So these, I'm going to zoom in on this here real quick because this is really important here, guys. So oxidative stress is the leading cause of a lot of the chronic illnesses here in the United States today. So, brain. Matt, you want to go ahead and read those? What causes, oxidative stress causes in the brain?
Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, ALS, OCD, ADHD,
OCD's bad.
autism, migraine, insomnia, depression, dementia, bipolar disorder, and cancer.
Big things, right?
Yeah.
Huge. All right. And it's Lisa, right?
Jill.
Jill, I'm sorry. Jill, why don't you go for heart? What do we got? We'll go clockwise.
Heart attack, stroke, high blood pressure, arteriosclerosis, and
Angina. Yeah. Now understand that these are contributing factors, right? These aren't the only. It's not the only driving factor, right? There's a lot of other things at play. There's hereditary markers. There's other lifestyle habits that are that can drive some of these diseases, but this oxidative stress is a big trigger. Okay. Hey Devin, why don't you go kidney?
Chronic kidney disease, renal, nephritis.
Okay. Nephritis.
Nephritis.
Yeah. This is basically failing of the kidneys, right? All right, Vartan, you want to go skin?
Yeah, I'll try. Wrinkles, acne, eczema,
Yep.
psoriasis, dermatitis,
Dermatitis.
cancer. Sorry.
Yep. We got multi-organ. We got diabetes. We got chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, heavy metal toxicity, Lyme disease. Matt, you want to go joints?
Rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, and psoriatic arthritis.
Mm-hmm.
Chronic inflammation, autoimmune disease, HIV, herpes, Crohn's, hepatitis, colds, flu, lupus, and cancer. For the immune system.
So obviously some of those things they're diseases that you contract, right? But when you have cells that are leaving your system vulnerable, they're leaving you weak to where these foreign invaders can come in and your body can't fight back the way that it normally should be able to. Okay? So, blood vessels.
Arteriosclerosis, hypertension, varicose veins, elevated cholesterol, and triglycerides.
Mm-hmm. Barton, lungs?
Asthma, COPD, allergies, chronic bronchitis, cancer.
And eyes, we've got muscular degeneration, retinal degeneration, and cataracts.
Wow. Even
That's a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. We're in a battle for our future, like our later years, right? And if we don't get it right from a nutritional standpoint, I was getting a haircut on Saturday. And just making small talk with a guy, and he happens to be a cancer therapist, right? So he's treating these cancer patients, and he's talking. I was reminded of a story as we were talking about it, because he brought up the fact that sugar is so detrimental. It just feeds those cancer cells, right? And we got to talking about nutrition, and one of my old clients who had brain cancer, and it was my job to get him physically ready, in shape, to where he could make the trip down to Chicago, to where he could get this experimental treatment that was going to hopefully save his life. And his family had written him off. They're like, oh, well, Chuck's a goner. He's too far gone. He's not going to make it anyway. He was bedridden, hadn't left his bed in 6 months. Right? And his family just wanted to make him comfortable. So they're going to bring him every day. They're going to bring him McDonald's sugary coffee drinks, right? And just all this crap because they wanted to make him happy, right? But they were killing him slowly, right? And they didn't understand it. And so while I'm over here fighting against it, it's like, unfortunately, we lost that battle. But the cool thing is, before Chuck passed, we were able to get him strong enough to where for the first time in 6 months, we were able to get him out of the bed, into his wheelchair, and for a walk outside for the first time in 6 months around the farm, and he was just in heaven. It's so I have very personal reasons. I mean, my mom, in February got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And so, you know, we're not just fighting for ourselves, but we're fighting for our loved ones, guys. So, all right.
Do you think that's from the free radicals? Like that's a contributing factor to
I think it's
all
one.
cancers?
I think it's one of the contributing factors. When my mom, when we were growing up, and I love my mom, she's amazing, you know, but she wasn't the most, actually she was a great example of what not to do for health. She would sleep until 11, and then she would wake up and she would have a scoopful of chocolate cake icing, right? A diet Pepsi, and 2 Dexatrim tablets, diet tablets. That was her breakfast, right? And she thought that, well, the diet Pepsi is 0 calories, and the icing is whatever, like a tablespoon is only 120 calories, and the Dexatrim tablet's gonna set me up for the day. So she thought she was like doing okay, right? I blame a lot of the marketing from the Sugar Association and from all the, like it's really important, guys, that we understand that marketing is not reality. So it's very easy for us to get pulled into the pseudo, like really they're gimmicks. They'll take one part of like a nutrition or whatever fact, and they'll warp and manipulate it to be able to fit their gimmick, to be able to sell you a product.
Ketchup is good for you. It's made from like there's copious amounts of sugar.
Right, right.
Tomato syrup.
Yeah. So it's just important that we understand that, you know, the same goes in the fitness industry. Supplements, you know, again, food-like products. Not to say that supplements aren't good, right? We have our own supplements that we had to work really hard to find a supplement company that we could partner with that made something that we could actually like be okay with promoting, you know? Because I'm not that guy that's going to get behind a product that isn't good for my clients. So, but sorry, I'm off that soapbox. Let's get into the hormones here, guys. So, as we talk about hormones, we've got the 5 big ones, or 6 big ones here, that I want to talk about: cortisol, adrenaline, insulin, glucagon, testosterone, and estrogen. Now, all of those hormones are produced in every human being. Jill, you produce testosterone, right? Barton, you produce estrogen, right? We all do. So cortisol is what's known as the stress hormone. So an increase in cortisol causes a decrease in testosterone. So when you're really, really stressed, your cortisol is going to increase. It's going to have the direct relation of decreasing your testosterone. For a healthy individual, it's not going to make such a huge impact that it's going to like kill you, right? Now, adrenaline. Here's a great opportunity for me to use myself as an example. Caffeinated beverages, like I'll tell you, this is my 4th today. This is my 4th caffeinated beverage today. Yeah. So you can create what's called adrenal fatigue. All right. So adrenal fatigue is when your adrenal glands aren't producing like they're supposed to, because I've artificially stimulated them so much. And I'm so habituated to the caffeine, right? We all know what the word habituated means. I'm just assuming, right? So you've taken in so much for such long periods of time that your body is adapted to it, and you need to take more and more to achieve the same effect, right? And so, like, my adrenal glands aren't producing adrenaline and cortisol at the level that they should. So I'm constantly having to take these things to be able to be on for you guys, right? My first client was at 6 a.m. this morning, and for me it's go, go, go. And instead of relying on getting a healthy night's sleep, I've relied on caffeine. right? So we all do it, right? And I've identified that as an area of opportunity for me. It doesn't mean I've chalked it up as like, well, that's just who I am, it's what I do, right? No, it's an opportunity for me to lead by example and to shift things in my own personal life. November, I cut alcohol completely, right? I had gotten to the point where I was drinking one night I'd have a beer, right? No big deal. And then it'd be, well, let's just buy a 12-pack, right? So there's always something in there. I can always, like, if I want to have 2, I can, whatever. Well, that turned into 2 beers that night, which turned into, they're there. Let me have a couple beers the next night. Turns out, like, I'd gotten to the point where for a good solid 6 to 8 month period, I was drinking anywhere from 4 to 6 beers every single night. And those calories add up. Those things kill your testosterone. It's a ton of sugar. It interferes with your sleep. It's like there's so many negative effects for that, right? And I knew that I needed to shift. I knew I needed to change. And here I am preaching to my clients, like, hey, if you really want to lose weight, you got to cut the alcohol. Like, lead by example, right? So we need, Matt, how many kids you got?
3.
3. Yeah, lead by example, man. I love that you're here. You being here is you leading by example, right? So congratulations to you, man. So that's awesome. Insulin is our next one. So insulin is the hormone that when we drink copious amounts of beers that are loaded with sugar, or we cave into that sugar addiction that we've got, or we cave into all the food-like products that are out there that are loaded with sugar, then our bodies don't have the capability to burn through all that sugar. So we get this massive spike in our blood sugar, and if we don't get that down, we're going to die. So our pancreas secretes a hormone called insulin. Insulin is the transport system that takes the blood sugar out of the bloodstream and stores it as fat for later. Problem is, for most Americans, later never comes, right? Now, glucagon is the opposing hormone, okay? Glucagon is one that people don't talk about. When you have low blood sugar, then your body needs to create glucagon to convert fat into sugar to use it as fuel, right? And that process is called gluconeogenesis. Such a pretty word. Glucose, sugar. Neo, new. Genesis, the creation of. Right?
So is it only carbohydrates that can be stored as fat? Like protein doesn't ever break down to be stored as fat?
So the way that the body works is protein, understand what protein is protein's made up of amino acids. Mm-hmm. Okay? Amino acids are literally the building blocks of life. All right? So when you look at the rungs, the nucleotides and the DNA strand, right, those are all made up of amino acids, yep. Right? Your body doesn't want to use the building blocks of life for energy, for basic day-to-day energy. Mm-hmm. So you got to be like Tom Hanks, starving on an island, talking to the volleyball, right, Wilson, kind of starving to get to that point where you're burning up muscle mass. So it's really important that we start to shift and break some of the falsehoods that have been promoted through the bodybuilding community of like, oh, don't do too much cardio, you're going to lose all your gains, bro. Right? It's a lie. Right? So
fat obviously can be stored as fat.
Fat can be stored as fat, yeah. Right? But for the most part, fat is actually used as fuel for your metabolism and your nervous system. Okay, so your nervous system is coated in what's called a myelin sheath. Okay, understand a fat is a high conductor of electricity. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when we take in good monounsaturated fats that come from nuts and avocados and olives and olive oils and all that kind of good stuff, right? As well as polyunsaturated fats, your omega-3, 6, 9 fatty acids that come from fish and chia seeds and things like that, right? Those are used to feed your brain, right? They're also used to feed your nervous system. So you can actually, just by increasing fat in your diet, you can increase your body's reaction or decrease your body's reaction time, right? Because the amount of time that it takes to get a signal from your brain through the nervous system to the synapses to your muscles is actually faster, because you've got that good electrical conductivity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, all right.
You can steal your thunder if that's on a future slide.
Don't worry about it. If it is on a future slide, I think it's better to address it like naturally and casually. Okay, testosterone. Testosterone increases lean mass, bone density, increases energy and mental focus. Low testosterone can lead to low libido in both men and women. I had a client a few years ago who's he had low testosterone, right? And so he started going on TRT, and TRT isn't a bad thing. It's just the very last thing that I promote for my clients to be able to get their hormones back in balance.
Was it a supplement or what is
Testosterone replacement therapy. So when you go to the doctor and they actually prescribe testosterone, so it's because they've done the blood work, and you've got such little testosterone that there's no way that naturally you're going to be able to boost it back up. Okay? Because literally your vital organs aren't producing it like they should, right? Or there's certain blockages. Now I'm big into when trying to boost testosterone, so many natural ways to do that. Let's talk about getting your strength training and your cardio programs back on track. Let's start cutting down the body fat. Let's start eating the right foods that are going to help promote testosterone production. Let's start performing the exercises that, like deadlifts and squats, that have such a high demand on big muscles that they create what's called a neuroendocrine response. They stimulate a hormonal change in the body, which then in turn helps boost that testosterone production, right? So there's lots of natural ways to boost testosterone before you have to go down that route, okay? And then lastly is estrogen. Now, I'm sorry, I wanted to finish my story here real quick. But that client, he started going on TRT, and he was probably taking a little bit more than he should, and he got yoked pretty quick, right? And his wife was battling with bouts of depression. She had low libido. She was she was feeling so disqualified because her husband was looking so good. He was doing so good on his fitness program, and she just kept falling off and couldn't figure out why she just couldn't get the energy or the motivation, or she couldn't muster what it took to execute on her training program that she knew she needed to execute. Well, turns out she had low testosterone also.
Everyone say hi to Meadow and my wife. In their car. She must have forgotten something in the car.
Oh yeah? But she had low testosterone also, and that was actually stimulating a lot of those negative feelings and the depression and the anxiety that was actually keeping her stuck psychologically, right? And so she was beating herself. We're all our own worst critics, right? So she was beating herself up, thinking there's something wrong with her, right? Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not this, I'm not that. And you're repeating that lie to yourself over and over again.
You'll believe it.
You start to believe it, and then it has a downward spiral effect psychologically, which then turns into increasing cortisol, which then lowers testosterone even more, right? And so, and not to mention that now she's not moving, and so she's increasing fat, which is producing more testosterone, or producing more estrogen, which is, it's just this snowballing effect, right? And so it's a matter of how do we naturally get you back into hormonal balance? Does that make sense, guys? Yeah. Awesome. Do we have any questions on hormones before we jump ahead?
So insulin resistant is where you can't store, you're not converting this sugar into...
There's an amazing book called The Diabetes Code, okay? So the first place that your body goes to store all that extra fat, it stores it as visceral fat. There's 3 different types of fat, right? You have visceral fat that surrounds your organs. You've got subcutaneous fat, which sits on top of the muscles. And you've got intermuscular fat. Intermuscular fat, if you've ever seen like a porterhouse steak and it's got like road maps of fat that run through there, right? That's the intermuscular fat, okay? So your body actually tries to store it as visceral fat, but specifically in the pancreas and the liver first, okay? Well, so think about this, right? The pancreas, is only, like, imagine it's a cup, right? And it's trying to store all these fat cells, but it's also in charge of producing the insulin that it needs to produce to be able to take that sugar and convert it to fat, right? So what happens is that fat starts to overflow that cup. And you can't stuff any more fat in there. So your pancreas shuts down insulin production in that organ, right? It says, listen, I'm full. I can't take any more. So what do? The doctor prescribes you insulin, right? So you're trying to stuff more and more fat into these organs, which perpetuates the disease, right? So again, the Diabetes Code, amazing book. I'll get the author's name for you before we leave today, but it's incredible. He talks about, he is a medical doctor that deals specifically in diabetes, right? And he talks about it's very reverse, adult onset specifically, type 2, is a completely reversible disease, right? So, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, I knew where you were going. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, it's good.
right on. Okay. Let's talk psychology. All right, we're going to get a little spiritual here, guys. So, our lead pastor at our church, Awaken, right, is Pastor Jürgen Matthesius. And I love this quote from him. He talks that everything that first existed in the natural first had to exist in the unseen realm. So think about this, right? Steve Jobs, before he invented your iPhone, it first had to exist in the imagination of Steve Jobs. Before he could manifest it into the natural realm, it had to exist in the unseen realm, right? Here's another amazing quote, right, from Dr. Rob Carmen. You cannot consistently act in a manner that is inconsistent with the way that you see yourself. I'll say that again because it's really, really important. You cannot consistently act in a manner that is inconsistent with the way that you see yourself.
So if you have low self-esteem,
If
you can't think your way out of it, you're eventually going to succumb to the self-esteem? Is that
Yeah, so my buddy Brad, right, when I was in high school, we always called him Billy Bob, right? Because if you've ever seen the movie Varsity Blues, he looked like Billy Bob. He's a big dude, football player, but like that was like his identity. He was the fat guy. He was the cowboy. He was like, he'd go to track practice and he did shot put and discus and he'd run his warm-up in his Doc Martens, right? Just didn't really take it seriously, but like he identified, he owned that, right? So like his whole life, that was who he was. But he faced medical issues around that. So he had to really, in order to resolve those medical issues, he then had to get gastric bypass surgery. But he had to lose like 100 pounds just to qualify for the surgery, right? So then they did that surgery. He lost all the weight, right? And then it actually uncovered a really major heart problem that he was having, right? And it turns out he actually now has to have a heart transplant, right? But it didn't change the behaviors. It didn't change the psychological, I'm the fat guy, right? It didn't change any of those underlying psychological issues. So he put all the weight back. He put a lot of the weight back on. And now he's reaching back out to me, even though I'm on the West Coast and he is in Illinois, and he's saying, hey, dude, like I got a heart transplant. I'm gonna die. Like I'm gonna leave my wife alone. I'm gonna like I need your help, man. And sorry, sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional here, but yeah. So it's like we have to break agreement with those deep-seated psychological connections that we have to that version of us, right? The lies that we came into agreement with, like, oh, I can't do it, or oh, this is just my genetics, or oh, I'm just big boned, or oh, I'm just this, or oh, I'm just that. Those are lies. And the more we start to visualize who we can be, the more that we're going to be able to work and manifest it into this natural realm. Okay? If you constantly think of, like, well, I'm just like, I've done this so many times, it's just going to not work, it's not going to work again, right? And you keep telling yourself these things, then you're going to self-sabotage every time. Because what you're trying to do in the gym, and you're trying to meal prep, and you're trying to do all these things, it's going to feel so hard and so daunting because it is not congruent with the way that you see yourself. Some of this stuff hitting home, you know?
Well, is your friend gonna get back on the train? You gotta.
I'm reaching back out to him. I've already, like, the ball's in his court, you know? So I'm all in for him, but I can't lose the weight for him.
Yeah.
You know? So, all right. There it is. Your body will always find a way to manifest your beliefs. And here's the other thing, guys.
I think, therefore I am.
100%. And I'm going to challenge you to another level, right? I speak. Before words were created for communication, they were first made for creation. When the whole world was created, God spoke it into existence. And guess what? When He made man, He did something different. He formed us out of the dirt, and then He breathed His breath into our lungs and gave us that same breath of creation. So when we speak and we say things like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I'm so stupid. Or well, it's come on, we're talking about me here, right? Like you're what you're saying, you're manifesting into reality, right? Into the natural realm, right? So now, how does that impact when you're out of alignment with hormones? Okay? So if you're out of alignment, if you're incongruent with the way that you see yourself, guess what? Stress increases. I'm out of alignment, right? This is really hard. I don't think I can keep this up. Man, right? So you're going to get super stressed. And listen, guys, stress is a natural thing. God created it for a reason. Think about back in the day when we were fighting warring tribes and there was famine, there was pestilence in the land, there was all these barriers to food, right? Because every single stress that we used to have to face was a barrier to food, right? So stress increases, your cortisol levels increase, your metabolism slows down. Because hey, I don't know when we're going to get food. We better slow this thing down, right? Otherwise, Eugene's going to waste away, right? So that's going to have a negative metabolic impact, right? Problem is that today we have the same physiological response to stress, but we don't have any barriers to food, right? Increases in cortisol also cause that same testosterone decrease, which has a negative metabolic effect, right? To kick that off, to talk back about my old client, right? She had that negative metabolic effect, which turned into a negative psychological effect, which compounded another negative metabolic effect, which continued on that, like, it's just like that snowball, like we talked about, right? Fatigued adrenals lead to decrease, means that you're going to be low energy, which means you're going to not want to move, which is going to have a negative metabolic effect. Imbalanced estrogen, testosterone, increased fat production. So it's like, it's obviously that's another negative metabolic effect, right? So as we're talking about some of these things, hopefully you can start to identify what's the real issue, right? Because these things are amazing. Technology is so cool, right? It'll tell me how many steps I took. It'll tell me what my cadence is on my run. It'll tell me how many calories that I burned. But how does it know how many calories I burned? The sensors cannot possibly know my body's internal hormone production. Every time I do this, it thinks I'm taking a step, because it has a little device in there, just like your cell phone does when you turn the screen and it knows to go landscape mode, right? It's got an accelerometer in there, right? It's got infrared, things that can see like pulse oximeters, and, it can see your pulse. But each and every one of those things are just partial pieces of the puzzle. It's not giving this device a comprehensive picture. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. There it is.
I'm not going too far.
All right. So your behaviors are always going to align with your deep internal beliefs of yourself, right? We talked about that, right? So the way you think is going to impact the way that you be, which is going to impact what you do, which is going to impact what you have, right? So we got to start changing the way you're thinking so we can start to impact the way that you're doing. So in order to do that, we have our sports psychology class that in 2 weeks we're going to be doing. All right, and we've written the entire material. Vartan, Matt, have you gotten a copy of the FTF program? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Have you gone through it?
Yeah, I haven't picked a thing to get, like the reward.
Yeah.
But I definitely need to do that. But I haven't been through it yet.
So here's one of the things that we need to understand is that we need to go on a kind of a journey of self-exploration. And Matt, you've been through part of this, so you kind of understand that, like, it's really like, it starts to, like, you got to bare your soul to really, like, start to expose some of the underlying issues that are really driving the behaviors that are keeping you from your fitness goals, right? And you've got to be open to getting that kind of vulnerable and to facing some of those demons. We're here to help you through that process. This is something that you should be doing every quarter, not just one and done. Because guess what? I do it, Devin does it. We're continually trying to peel back the layers so we can, get to that next level that we want to get to, right? And it doesn't always manifest in as far as physical fitness goes. Sometimes it might manifest in your relationships. Sometimes it might manifest in your finances or in your friendships or as barriers in your faith, right? There's tons of different ways that these deep, like, negative lies, these internal beliefs that you've come into agreement with can drive bad behaviors, right? And a lot of those bad behaviors, because it's all connected, right? Like your fitness, Your finances, your faith, your family, your friendships, all of those things are interwoven, right? If you're not fit, I'll tell you for me, right? If I'm not at my A game and my wife is like I feel it, right? And I feel insecure in my relationship with my wife, right? That's a reality that we all face, right? And tell me that's not going to negatively impact our relationship and cause a rift between us, right?
Yep.
And if that's happening there, it causes a chain reaction to where, now we're not talking. And maybe we're not talking about anything, right? Maybe we're just roommates now. And we're not talking about finances. So now it's got a negative impact on our finances, right? And I can't go out with friends because maybe now there's just like all kinds of issues if you're neglecting things at home. And so it's a cascading thing, right? So that's the end of that PowerPoint. I want to take the rest of our time today and I want to get into the MyFitnessPal. I want to get into the concrete instruction of like, okay, now what do we do? We're empowered with this information. We've got the insight of like, all right, well, we know we need to face these battles. In 2 weeks, I expect all of you guys signed up and RSVP'd for that FTF seminar with your spouses preferably, right? Because that's, dude, big, and Jill, thank you for being here, by the way, and supporting Bartan. Like the fact that you guys are here together, that's, the Bible says that a 3-strand cord is not easily broken, right? So, at any rate.
I can babysit.
Can I ask one question? So,
yeah.
I read about people who have lost a lot of weight, and then, like the guy who was on the biggest, they were talking about the new weight loss drug that's out there in the Apple News. They said that some people, when they lose a lot of weight, they lose 30, 40 pounds, and they keep it off even for like a year. But then they still feel the desire to continue to probably eat too much. But also, if they just maintain the way they were eating, there's still too many calories, right? And now they need to eat like 1,400 calories a day, and that's the most they can eat and still maintain their weight, even though they're at like, 180 pounds or whatever their weight is at.
Because the new them is not congruent with who they think they are. Right? And so just working to stay at that level is so incredibly stressful. And can you imagine being on like a show like The Biggest Loser where you've just lost 100 pounds?
Oh God,
Yeah.
Right? And the pressure that, because it's on national TV, everybody knows who you are.
I got a huge support.
Yeah.
You're living with people. And
Right.
Yeah.
And now you have to go back to the world that you knew and face all the, they don't provide any psychological treatment. They don't provide any of that stuff, right? It's just, we're going to work your tail off and we're going to teach you about food because we think that what the root really is you're just not disciplined enough to do it on your own, and you don't know what to eat. You're just too dumb and too lazy, so we're going to fix you. And that is so condescending. And it's a lie. And it's what people in America believe is the truth now. It's not true. So if you don't break that falsehood of like, this is who I think I am, then it's always going to be this like, oh yeah, I'm struggling with my fitness still, right? And that's stressful. Cortisol, testosterone, estrogen, right? Like all of these things, like it's like your body is trying to always find homeostasis. Your body's always trying to find balance. And so, like, if you've got inner turmoil psychologically that's creating hormonal turmoil, you can't be in balance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So, yeah. Good?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on any of the material that we've covered thus far? Good?
Challenge
listen, guys, I know this sounds really overwhelming, all this stuff, you know, but if we don't face the truth about like what is the full scope of what we've got in front of us, like we can't, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and lie to you guys and say, well, if you eat less and move more, then there it is. Simple formula. Because it's not always that simple. Right?
Yeah, we tried that. That didn't work.
Right?
Tried a lot of stuff.
So, where are you from, Vartan?
Lebanon.
Lebanon. Okay, right on. What's your culture like over there?
We're not like this.
Like in regards to food?
Oh, we eat. I mean, we have stress. A lot of stress.
Yeah?
We had civil war, so, and now we have economical.
Yeah. I mean, when was the last time Beirut was under attack? It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't.
The explosion in Beirut was just recent.
They're still suffering.
Yeah.
From it. But besides that, the food, I think.
It's different. It's
It's just
different.
different,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Mediterranean diet
Well,
is just
different. I
completely
mean, I
different.
was just showing Devin how I was when I met her.
Mm-hmm.
It was when I first came. But anyways, it's just 1/3 of what I am now.
Well, here's what's important to understand is that the American diet sets us up for failure from the start,
I think so.
right? I have clients that, you know, they go off to Europe and they can't, like here in America, they're like, man, like I gotta be so strict. I have to watch my diet. I have to, like, I can't eat any bread. I can't eat any pasta. I can't. But they go to Europe and they can eat the bread, they can eat the pasta, they can eat everything, and their body's like, man, I feel
Everything
good.
different. I mean,
I thought I was gluten intolerant. I thought I couldn't eat this
I
stuff.
lived in Italy for 2 years, and they don't cook at home.
Yeah,
They eat out, but then they walk to the restaurant and they walk back home.
right,
And then, like you said, you know, their flour is different, their water is different.
right.
they don't have a lot of genetically modified.
Yes,
Right.
everything is pure.
Well, and here's like, so let's go down a real quick rabbit hole, right? So Europe will not import American beef. I don't know if you guys know that, right? The commercialized beef industry pumps our cattle full of hormones. One of those hormones specifically is called Restidol, which is a known cancer-causing hormone, right? So obviously that's a problem because at the end of the day, the farmer is trying to make money, right? If they can get more meat out of one head of cattle, then they're gonna maximize their profit, right? And what they were doing back in the like 80s and 90s is when they had a cow that would die, they would take, that's good protein.
They would ground it.
They would grind it up and throw it in the grain and mix it into the grain, and that's actually how mad cow disease got started. Because these cattle had diseases, and they're feeding it to all the other cattle. Anyway, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, and this is one of the other things, right? So, you know, it can be really, really overcomplicated for a lot of people. So we're simplifying things, right? We just started up Unbroken Nutrition Solutions, which is a meal prep company. Whereas if you guys wanted to get your meal prep delivered here, you can pick it up once a week, take it home, and you have all your food prepared for you. That's an option, right? And we'll actually write your menu plan because Devin's a nutritionist, I'm a nutritionist. We're all certified in nutrition through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, right?
Is it all natural, organic? Like where's
Exactly. So we're shopping at farmers markets. We're getting all of the organic meats, hormone free. We're getting free of pesticides and herbicides with our vegetables.
It's so hard to find that.
It is so hard to find
I
it.
spend so much time in the grocery store reading labels.
Well,
stresses me out.
Unfortunately, if you're buying it at the grocery store, you've already missed the mark.
Well, Sprouts,
Even
I
if you're
can
at
do,
Sprouts or Trader Joe's, you know, unfortunately, you're not, like, they have to get mass produced fruits. And there's a certain criteria that manufacturers or food farmers have to meet to be able to label organic, right? And again, it's just another buzzword, right? It's like when the difference between reduced fat and low fat. And I can't remember the exact delineation between the two because it's been many years since I've studied that. But if I remember correctly, reduced fat was like it's reduced by like 30% of its normal fat content, whereas low fat is reduced like 50%, and then non-fat is like there's no fat and all pumped in sugar because they have to get the flavor somehow, right? And then that sugar goes into your system, and then your pancreas goes, hey, sugar, we need to turn it to fat, right? And so that's the problem is, back in the last thing, and I'll get off of this tangent and we'll get into the MyFitnessPal part. But so back in the 70s and 80s, the Sugar Association adopted the same methods that the tobacco industry did. So the tobacco industry back in the day was paying off researchers to basically say, cigarettes don't cause cancer. What are you talking about? Right? It's something else, right? And so government creates intervention programs, right? So when we see, if you wanted to go buy cigarettes today, they're so heavily taxed that it de-incentivizes the American citizenry on purchasing cigarettes, right? And while I don't agree with those methods, because I think all about freedom, right? You're in charge of your own health.
Libertarian.
Right? That's neither here nor there. That's the reality is that's what they do, right? Well, the Sugar Association did the exact same thing. Is they paid off researchers to show that the increase in obesity and diabetes was not sugar related, but it was because of fat. And independent researchers.
We're not healthier as a nation.
What's that?
We're not healthier.
No, we're not.
And everybody's even bigger still.
Yeah. Well, and so you think about what happened is you had independent researchers that were over here going, well, no, that doesn't jive with what we're finding. But then they're over here saying, no, look at the research. And as a researcher, you can manipulate statistics and show things that can support your point, right? Support your theory, right? And so that's exactly what they did, right? And because the Sugar Association had more money, guess who won the propaganda war?
So my son always says, follow the money. Just follow the money.
Follow the money. And all these documents got exposed about a decade ago. There was a college student that was like in a library that stumbled upon all of these documents. Anyway, but the point is that because of that propaganda war, who won? That's what spurred on the low-fat, non-fat, reduced fat, skim, everything movement to make fat the enemy. And then in comes the refined sugar, the high fructose corn syrup, all of that stuff, right? And what you don't know about sugar will kill you. Because if you look at the isolated nutrients of any plant, right, what white granulated sugar or high fructose corn syrup is one single isolated nutrient out of either beets, corn, or cane sugar, right? And so you take that isolated nutrient and you ingest it, and it causes a whole host of problems in the human body. You look at the coca leaf in the Andes Mountains, right? The native people use it as a nutraceutical. It's a powerful medicinal plant. They use it all the time, right? And
They chew it up and put it in their mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like people used to do chop with tobacco.
Right. And it's like they're not facing a bunch of health issues or anything, but if you take that coca leaf and you extract one single isolated nutrient out of it, you end up with cocaine. So the white flour, the white sugar, the cocaine, it's like they're not all on the same level, but they all cause problems in the human body.
Nuts too?
Huh?
He didn't say anything about that. We're talking about
I'll get you the recording.
Sorry.
But yeah, so
what's it called? My what?
MyFitnessPal. So let's get into the MyFitnessPal component, okay? This is where the rubber meets the road here, guys. So,
Bartron, do you have it on your phone?
here's what's really amazing, ladies and gentlemen, is that MyFitnessPal is actually integrates to our app. So your coach can actually see what you're eating and help hold you accountable. Okay? So,
Why are you doing that?
I keep trying to tell her, hey, buddy.
I had
Okay.
coach
so this is my account here, guys.
We downloaded it and now it's in the cloud.
All right. So I want to show you guys how easy it is to use this program. Okay? Has everybody used this before? Vartan?
No, he's not used
Time to get on the wagon.
Thank you.
Okay? So this is an amazing tool and it's free. So the you can invest in the upgraded version, which is like I think $80 a year, which is really like nothing. And I don't work for them. I don't like. I'm not promoting them, but it's a great tool for us to be able to see what you're doing. Okay. So when you pop on, your dashboard on your phone is going to look a little bit different than this. But it should encourage you, because if you're somebody that's in front of your computer all day long, you can actually have it pulled up, and now it's like, okay, well, I can just use the laptop interface, right? Or the desktop. So I'm going to click on food up here. And as you guys have noticed here, when you originally set up your account, it's going to put in some arbitrary numbers, right? It's going to try and guess your metabolic output, okay? So it's going to give you a caloric budget based off of your weight, your desired activity levels, like your gender, all of those different things, right? Now I like to pop in, and because our ancestors were grazers, right? So if I'm out hunting, I need to keep my energy up because I need to be ready for the hunt. So I'm picking fruit and I'm nuts and digging up onions from the ground, whatever I can do to eat to keep my cat. It's a high caloric demand to hunt. Same thing if you're out in the fields and you're picking, right? So we were a hunter-gatherer-farmer species, okay? Which is really, like I said, high calorie output. It's my philosophy that eating consistently throughout the day, not only does that keep your metabolism stimulated, right? So you think of a campfire, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of intermittent fasting, right? Is you think of a campfire. If I take all of my logs and throw them on the campfire all at the same time, it's going to burn really hot for a short period of time. And then it's going to go out. The flame's going to get really low, right? That's not what I want. I want to keep my flame, I want to put a log on the fire, and then in a couple hours, I'm going to put another log on the fire. In a couple hours, I'm going to put another log on the fire, and I'm going to keep my fire burning hot all day long. And so just by eating regularly like that, I'm able to keep my metabolism running high, and I can keep myself from making poor decisions because I've put myself in a reactive state. Who's gotten to that point where it's like, oh man, I forgot, it's lunchtime, shoot. Or it's dinner time and I didn't even get lunch yet. Holy smokes. And now you're ravenous. You're ravenous. And so you make poor decisions with your food because you are reactive instead of proactive. You guys have all heard that saying that failing to plan is planning to fail. So we need to have a plan in place to make sure that we can stay on point with the way that our bodies were designed as grazers. Okay? So with that being said, that's the way I map it out. Now, your coach will tell you exactly how many calories that you should be on. They will tell you exactly what your macronutrient ratios should be. So if I've got 2,000 calories that I get every day, and 50% of those calories get to come from fat, then I get 1,000 calories of fat every day. And then another 33% come from protein, and then another whatever's left percent comes from carbohydrates. So now, like, you can actually map those things out and you can work towards specific goals. And we can also give you a menu plan that is like a skeleton framework, is really what it is. I want you guys to understand that, like, we need to develop habits. So the menu plan and the eating the 5-6 times a day, while it's not like you don't have to do it, but it's really important to stay consistent of like, oh, it's noon, it's time for me to eat. Even if I'm not hungry, I'm gonna eat something, right? It's 2 o'clock, it's time for me to eat, right? Because otherwise you're gonna find yourself again in a reactive mode because you skipped your snack and by dinner time, you're ravenous. Or you didn't drink enough water.
That's what happens to me.
Yeah. Or you didn't drink enough water and you're confusing thirst with hunger, right? These caffeinated beverages, we all love our coffee, but caffeine is a diuretic. So it actually causes us to get dehydrated, right? Which then again gets confused with hunger. So,
Is that why you're supposed to drink a glass of water with every cup of coffee and then with every alcoholic beverage?
yes.
Kind of counter the...
Yeah, to counter the dehydration effects. But also, you have to understand is that caffeine and alcohol are drugs, right? So in an effort to dilute the effects, right? You want, like alcohol, you want to dilute the effects of that alcohol unless you're like, just really like, you're in a bad way, you know? So the way that we do this, a couple of things that I want to get into. I'm going to go into breakfast and I'm going to click add food. All right? Now when I click add food, it's going to pull up things that I eat or I have logged in the past. Right? Here's the thing. Human beings are creatures of habit. We have a tendency to eat the same things over and over again, which is good and it's bad. There's pros and cons there. I think it's good from get into a habit standpoint, but it's bad because you actually narrow the spectrum of vitamins and minerals and different blends of protein that your body needs. So that's something to take into consideration. So you should always be trying to mix it up, but while staying within your macronutrient profile and your caloric budget, right? So I'm just going to get into what I had this morning. First thing, when I wake up, I've been doing a 5-hour energy every day, right? So I'm just going to click that.
What's that?
It's just a little energy shot,
Oh, okay.
right? A little caffeine and B vitamin, right? And where are my eggs? Here we go. Golden, all these large eggs. Boom. And you'll see even the quantity over here is outlined. So I do 5 eggs, right?
Every morning you do 5 eggs?
5 eggs every day. Now,
Eggs?
5 eggs. And here's the thing is that
How expensive eggs are? No, I'm just kidding.
they've actually come down a little bit. So a few years ago, Harvard actually did a study on the types of cholesterol and fat that are in eggs, right? There's been a lot of conflicting data. Like 1 year, they're like, oh, don't eat eggs, they're horrible for you. And then the next year, it's like, oh, eat eggs, they're the best. And then it's just like back and forth. Nobody can come to a consensus, right? At the end of the day, you got to make your decision and just own it, right? And so that's me owning my decision. I've decided that if all of these farmers can go out and they can eat eggs every day of their lives and live to the ripe old age of 100, right? And be living a happy, healthy lifestyle, then guess what? I don't think there's anything wrong with eggs. But to defend that point, Harvard came out with a study a couple of years back that actually explored the types of fat, the types of cholesterol. They're actually large lipid fats that clear out your arteries, as opposed to these small lipids, which are what gets caught on the walls of your arteries, causing arterial and atherosclerosis. So, okay.
If it makes you feel any better, the eggs are consumed almost in a lot of different meals in the blue zones, like the zones where everyone lives to be over 100.
Oh yeah.
Like the average age, yeah.
Okay.
Mediterranean diet people.
Yeah.
How do you eat your eggs?
Sometimes an omelet, sometimes scrambled, sometimes
So it
sunny
doesn't-
side up. Sometimes, I mean, it's usually scrambled because it's the easiest. So,
It
but yeah,
doesn't matter.
yeah. No, I mean, it doesn't. And here's the other thing: is that eggs are a great source of protein, right? And eggs are actually the most bioavailable protein that we can ingest, which means that your body can recognize, absorb, and assimilate those amino acids better than any other protein. Right? So, now that I've added all of that, I'm just going to hit add checked, and boom. So 355 calories. And it's 23 grams of fat, 30 grams of protein, and 58 grams, or no, yeah, 50 grams of sodium, right?
So you put in the food and it tells you all those other
Exactly. And
So
what's
you just
cool,
have to know what you're eating.
right?
Well, where is the sodium coming from? Egg has
From the eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, well, and understand that the Food and Drug Administration came out with like guidelines, right? They say 2,400 milligrams is like the maximum amount of sodium that we should be taking in. So understand that what sodium does, it's actually a very important nutrient that we need to take in. If you're low in sodium, your body can't hold on to the water you're drinking. So you can actually get dehydrated from not having enough sodium in your diet. You can get cramps in your legs at night because you don't have enough sodium in your diet. Just like potassium, everybody's like, oh, I'm getting cramps in my legs, and the doctor says, oh, you need to eat a banana because you got to get your potassium up. Potassium is an electrolyte, sodium is an electrolyte, magnesium is an electrolyte, right? So we need to make sure that we're getting all of those minerals in, okay? But you guys saw how easy that is, okay? So I'm gonna go to my AM snack here, right? I'm gonna add a food, all right? And I'm actually gonna pop in and add the food that I had. So I had a Nature Valley dark chocolate granola bar. So almost like an internet search, you want to be as specific as you possibly can. Oh, here it is. Dark chocolate granola bar. And I'm going to always look for the green check marks. The green check marks means that it's verified. Now understand that this is a crowdsourced database. What that means is that if I'm Joe Schmo and I want to put in a food in the database, I can just put it in and then everybody else can see it, which is good and bad, because if I put in the wrong information, then everybody else is getting the wrong information. The green check marks mostly are verified, right? They're not always accurate. So what you should do is you should always look at the nutrition facts on the label of the food that you're eating if it's available. If you're eating right, it shouldn't be available. If you're eating fruits and vegetables and lean proteins, like there shouldn't be a barcode with nutrition facts on your chicken breast or on your apple, right? So, food for thought. All right, so I'm gonna click on that sucker. All right. And I'm gonna add that food to my diary. There it is. Cool. All right. Now what's neat is as I come down here, I can look at the percentages of protein, fat, and carbohydrates, and I'm not 100% sure how to access this on the desktop, but you can actually look on the app and see what are the percentages of, where are we at?
Yeah, So you're going here, you're gonna hit back,
Yeah.
and then
Oops,
We
that's
don't have any
macros.
meals in here.
There we go. So now, so Matt's got his macros pulled up here, so you can see that. Take a look here, Jill. So Matt's got his macros pulled up, which is awesome. But if you look up at the top, not only do you see macros highlighted, but you also see calories
Yeah.
and nutrients.
Oh.
So if I tap on nutrients, I can say, all right, Matt has had 109 grams of protein. He's had 22 net carbs today, 28 grams of fiber, 5 grams of sugar. Good job, dude.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. 22 grams of fat, only 3 grams of saturated fat, 4 grams of polyunsaturated, 4 grams of monounsaturated, 0 trans fats. Let's go. Right? 305 milligrams of cholesterol, 2,791 milligrams of sodium, 2,209 grams of potassium, 272 grams of milligrams of vitamin A, 254 vitamin C, 23 calcium, 29 iron. So I can see where he's deficient. So first step is, what can we do to bridge the gap in your calcium, your iron, and your potassium? How do we get those up? So what do? Google foods that are high in potassium, foods that are high in iron, right? And then we can start to look at how that shapes day over day, year over year, right? So you start logging those things, you start looking at those markers, and it's really, really kind of a cool journey to go on. Because everything is there.
And you put all your drinks in there?
Yeah, yeah. So
Evan
you
isn't pleased that I have coffee for breakfast only, or espresso for coffee only. Yeah,
but
all the drinks too. I don't put the water in there, but maybe I should.
I would, just again so you can track it. You know, I try and get each one of my clients, if they're eating 6 meals a day, they're drinking 22 fluid ounces of water with every single meal. So by the time the end of the day comes, they've drank a gallon of water throughout the day. And we want to make sure that water that you're drinking is like natural spring water, not distilled water. The difference there is that distilled water has 0 minerals in it, 0 nutrients. So when you're talking about potassium and magnesium and sodium and calcium and all those things, those trace minerals, you're not getting any of that, right? So distilled water will actually flush the good nutrients out of your system. So
It absorbs them, yeah, or pulls them out of your body.
yeah, so you'll just pee them all out. So yeah, cool.
Cool.
All right. Now here's what else is nice, right? Bertan, you're from Lebanon, right? Do you eat, like back home, do you eat a portion of meat, a vegetable on the side, a starch over here, all separated?
No, mixed.
It's all mixed up, right?
Not in one dish, but on the set.
Right.
We
So
eat them, yeah.
yeah, and so like sometimes the foods are all separated. What if you're eating a soup? What if it's a homemade soup? Right? What if it's a stir fry? What if it's what do you do then? Right? Well, you can put in recipes into your database. And again, human beings are creatures of habit. So here's what's nice is that when you put in, and I'm going to go to lunch, and I'm going to add a food, right? And I can go up here to frequent. These are frequent foods that I eat. I can go to my foods, right? And so these are some meal prep companies that I used to use when I was at Fit Athletic Club, right? These are like our protein powder here at Unbroken, right? So I can put in a specific food or a specific supplement into the database if it's not already there, right? I can also create meals, all right? So my Chipotle bowl. So I have a specific, like I go and I do no rice, I do extra fajitas, I do 2 portions of chicken, 1 portion of steak, I get cheese, guac, hot salsa, and that's it.
You don't do beans?
Nope.
So rice is
Beans, here's the thing is that what you'll understand, and I promote this for a lot of my clients who have, I mean, really anybody starting a new nutrition program, if you're really gung-ho about losing that weight, most people have never eaten healthy. Most Americans don't even know what their body what feeling good really feels like, right? So we do a 30-day eat clean challenge, right? Which is 30 days of eating basically nothing but lean proteins, healthy fats, vegetables, maybe 1 or 2 pieces of fruit throughout the day, right? And that's it. That's all you get.
No cocktail?
Absolutely no alcohol, no starchy carbohydrates. But here's the thing, is that there's a lot of foods that are really abrasive on the digestive system. And when you've been eating processed, prepackaged foods for a lifetime, your GI tract, the system that is in charge of absorbing all of the nutrients that you ingest, is beaten up and it's inflamed. So it's not doing a good job of absorbing the nutrients that's in your food. So by eating clean really clean for 30 days, it can heal. On top of that, now you're able to absorb nutrients better, your GI tract isn't all stopped up, you can start to reintroduce the foods that you really love one at a time. So maybe you really, really love bread, right? Okay, awesome. Let's reintroduce one food at a time. The bread that you love this week. All right, so I'm eating bread. Holy smokes, this is like, oh, my stomach doesn't feel right. Like it's sitting really heavy. I actually feel bloated. My wedding ring is like my hands are swollen. You're gonna notice the physiological effects, and it's gonna be stark, right? It's like the whole boiling frog, right? If you try and put a frog in boiling water, it's gonna jump out every time. But if you put it in tepid water and on the stove and you slowly bring it up, it's gonna stay in that pot. Well, that's how Americans have been with our diets over a lifetime, right? Is we've slowly been boiling ourselves alive, right? And we don't even know what good feels like anymore, right? So by having that stark difference, it helps us to be able to really identify the foods that are the major impact on our systems. So maybe bread doesn't have an impact on you, Vartan. Great, keep it in the diet, right? So I'm gonna try beans next. Maybe I really miss black beans. I wanna put that back in my Chipotle bowl, right? I learned very quickly that black beans and me don't jive, right? Because they hurt me. They hurt my stomach. There's a whole mess of issues that happens from that standpoint. And I love the taste of black beans. So I can weigh out the risk, benefit, reward there. I might really, really want the taste, but am I willing to sacrifice how it makes me feel for that taste? And sometimes the answer is yes, but most of the time the answer is no. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah. I just didn't know if that was, you put that in the bad food category in general, or because I had a previous nutritionist who was like, no, beans are the greatest thing you could possibly eat.
Well, it depends on the nutritionist, right? So if you're dealing with a nutritionist that is like a vegan or a vegetarian, and really believes that go all plant-based, you really don't have many options for protein.
So that's why she's leaning on beans.
She's pushing beans because she's hoping to wean you off meat. Right?
Okay.
So just something to think about. And it's always important to understand your coach's philosophy on food and nutrition and everything. And does it, listen, if they can justify their position, okay, I'm willing to listen. But let's have a good, honest conversation about those things, and why you believe what you believe. Why are you pushing it on me? Do you really believe that it's good for me, or is it because you think that cow flatulence is killing the ozone layer and we're all going to die?
I think she was just following the Mediterranean diet pattern that they use at their place. That's
Right.
probably the deal.
Well, and that's, that might be the thing, right? But yeah, I think it's important that I have a theory, right? You come from Lebanon. My theory is that if we got you eating what your ancestors ate, then your genetic code would recognize that, and your body would find homeostasis, right? Where's your genetic, where's your heritage come from?
Germany, Sweden
Okay.
are the two biggest.
Yeah. So neighboring, they're all right there in the same area. So if you were to, I really think, because there is something called cellular memory, right? Our cells can actually remember what our ancestors did generations ago, right? Molecular biologists have found this out. They've proven this, right? There's tons of scientific studies. And what's funny is that it actually supports everything that the Bible says. So it's anyway. But the point is I think that if you were to eat kind of something that was more native to what your ancestors
fish
ate.
And sheep.
I was gonna say.
Grains, I guess. I don't know. Do they? I guess I don't know what.
Germans eat a lot of pork.
Pork.
This is my theory. This is my theory. I haven't proven this theory, so take it with a grain of salt, right? Eventually, I'm gonna get around to doing this study, but I'm gonna get thousands of people together, and we're gonna do this test. Everybody's gonna do a 23andMe, and we're gonna figure out where your genetic heritage comes from, and then we're gonna put you on that diet, and we'll see what happens.
Blood levels, blood tests.
Right? Now let's get into, so this is meals, right? Let's actually just do this. Let's see if I can add a meal here.
You lost your fancy little.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. All right.
There's something called edit. You can edit things.
So it's really intuitive on the app, right? But I know that you can add, adding a meal is just as easy as going in and just like you would select the items for your lunch. Maybe you had a cup of broccoli and you had a chicken breast that was 4 ounces and you had a half of an avocado.
So
You would do
saying
the
we
same
should
thing.
Measure
Yes.
food every time.
Yeah.
For a period of time. Because what we need to do is we need to, here in America, our portion sizes are so big. Our plates are
You
massive.
think?
And so our eyes have been trained to look at that and go, that's normal.
Yeah.
But that's not normal. We need to retrain our eyes. So we need to start weighing and measuring food out so we can go, holy smokes, that's 4 ounces? Wow, I've been eating way more than that. I've been having 3 times that much, right? And so once you start to have that epiphany, that aha moment of what you're actually eating versus what you should be eating, the vast majority of people under-report their calories. Because they just throw it on the plate and they go, yeah, that's about 4 ounces. When in actuality, it's 6 or 8. And then they underreport their calories and then they overestimate their caloric output, how much they burn. Right?
Yeah.
And so there's that balance component when we're trying to find calories in versus calories out. Here's the thing, and I'm gonna say this really quick, is we need to be sure that this process, you understand, is just a step in the journey. It's not your forever.
Right.
Okay? So it's a tool to teach you, to educate you. Because if it stresses you out and it becomes this source of frustration, what is that going to do? Increase cortisol, right? Decrease metabolism, right? And that's not what we're trying to do. We need to find a solution for you guys that is going to, like, you're going to have peace about it. You're going to enjoy the process. You're going to be like, I want to learn. Because we need to empower you to where you're not dependent on a trainer to write you a menu plan every single time or every single week. Hey, Devin, I'm sick of this menu plan. Can you write me a new one?
That's an option?
It is an option.
We've had those conversations.
It is an option, but at the same time, like, we have food swap lists. We want to educate you guys, which is why we are doing this class. All right? So now to get into recipes, these are specific recipes, right? I make a certain antioxidant shake, right? So, which is a blend of blueberries, and you basically take all of the portion sizes of the fruits, the vegetables, whatever it is you're putting into that recipe, and if you want to make shrimp ceviche, right, well then you got to cut up the portion sizes of the onions and all, it's, let's see if I can pop this open. My foods, my meals. Here we go. So, shrimp ceviche. All right, so you guys can see 1.5 pounds of shrimp, a half cup of red onion, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, a half cup of raw lemon juice, 1 tomato, 2 medium avocados, 1 scoop of cilantro, and 1 teaspoon of sea salt. Right? That makes the entire bowl. Well, now what's cool is when I create this, I can actually say, well, this yields 5 servings. Right? Or let's just say 4 servings, because it's roughly 1,000 calories. So if it was 4 servings, then each serving is roughly 250 calories. Right? So when you put that in, you just need to make sure that you follow the same recipe every time and that you divide up your portion size properly. So you can create recipes that now you can replicate or tweak and modify, because you're like, you know what, I liked the way I made it last time, but I really feel like it needed some chili powder, or I really feel like it needed something else, right? Well, you can tweak the recipe, and now you've got something in here in the database that you can replicate and share with others. Oh, Jill, I love your ceviche. Like, oh yeah, great. I'll share the recipe with you on MyFitnessPal, right? So, does that all make sense? Do we have any questions, comments, concerns on MyFitnessPal? No. Are we starting to realize how powerful of a tool this is?
I am not going to do it.
You need to take ownership of your own. And I'm telling you, I know you're going to say, oh, I don't have time. You need to make time. I'm not good with computers. Figure it out. You didn't know how to drive at first, but you figured it out.
Dude, he can rebuild a transmission. He can figure out how to do FitnessPal.
I'm telling you,
Self-taught.
Vartan, here's the thing, man, is that if you rely on your wife to do it,
Then I get blamed.
and then she's gonna catch the flack when she messes it up, or when she doesn't do it right, or when she doesn't do it at all, right? And that's an incredible pressure on her. And I'm speaking from experience, because I did this with my ex-wife. With my nutrition, I learned, she would make me breakfast every day, and I became reliant on her making me breakfast every day, right? And then there would be days where it's like, okay, well, we ain't got a pot to piss in, we got no money in the bank, I can't spend money at the gym, and so I need you to make me my lunch. Well, she didn't, and now I'm starving all day, and I'm cursing her all day long. Stupid bitch. I'm so pissed off that she didn't do me a favor. Wait a second. You know, and that created a rift. Don't put that on her. Don't put that strain on your relationship. Take the ownership yourself, because it's your food, it's your body, it's your nutrition. You're the one that has to learn it.
So, does that mean all the food every day?
All the food every day
So,
for a
regardless
time.
what she's making and stuff.
Huh?
So I don't follow her dinner or her.
Well, I mean, if I make something, you're responsible to record it.
This is a great segue into support systems. You guys are your support systems for each other, right? You're on the same team. You want what's best for her. You want what's best for her, right?
Team Jill.
You want
I
what?
know.
Yeah, and she wants what's best for you. You want what's best for your wife and for your kids, just like they want what's best for you. So we need to lay it all our cards on the table and say, honey, I need help. I need you to hold me accountable. And I promise, maybe I'll get mad in the moment, but I promise I'm not going to hold it against you. Like I need the accountability.
Yeah.
Right?
He does, yeah, he does.
So, like this is something that you have to do together. And because let's be honest, if she was coming home every day with an extra large pizza for you to eat, is that setting you up for success?
Never do that.
But I'll do it.
I've trained a lot of clients over the last 25
I'll
years.
bring home an extra large pizza when I'm not in town.
Right.
Not large pizza, but yeah, I mean, I'll break it. You know. What I was trying to to say is, you said 6 meals.
Mm-hmm. So understand what a meal is. Every time you put food in your body, that's a meal. Right? So if I grab 160 calories, which is 1 ounce of raw almonds, which is not a lot.
That is not a lot.
That's not a lot. 1 ounce of raw almonds, right? That goes quick, right?
It's like 23 almonds.
Yeah. And then I do that on top of 1 cup of blueberries, which is 60 calories. I now ate a meal. It's 200 and what did I say? It was 160 plus another 60 is 220 calories.
250 is a meal.
Huh?
250 calories.
Yeah, well, it depends on your caloric amounts, right? So if I'm trying to take in 2,500 calories a day, I don't want to like eat little rabbit-sized portions all day and leave myself, 1,800 calories to eat at night, because that's not good for your metabolism. You got to space them out, right?
He was describing the snack, the morning snack was the.
Yeah.
I think an apple is also on the meal plan that Debbie
Yeah.
gave me.
An apple, like maybe it's an apple, which is 80 calories on top of 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, which is almost 200 calories. So now you've had 280 calories. That's a good snack, good sized snack. It's going to keep you full until lunch. So you would just log an apple and peanut butter. Does that make sense?
Eugene, I have to go pick up my daughter at soccer practice at Black Mountain Ranch.
No, yeah, you're all good. I mean, we're really just kind of wrapping up.
Yeah.
And do you have any questions before you bounce out?
I think just around figuring out what the right number of calories is in a day.
Mm-hmm.
It's been hard. Like I've been doing like 18 to 2,000 calories a day, and I should, like you said, like finding the right number has been hard.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would actually, have you been weighing and measuring everything out? Are you sure that that's
I have a food scale.
your portions?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So if we can speak to that and say like, I know 100% that this is correct, then I would actually look at bumping your calories up and seeing if that fuels you a little bit better, so you can bring in more intensity to your workouts, and then build more
I think
muscle.
maybe it's counting too many. I'm burning too many calories in my Apple Watch.
Yeah.
It's,
We don't want to have a greater caloric deficit than 1,000 calories, right? So if you're a big dude.
Mm-hmm.
If you're burning close to 3,000 calories, which you very well could be, but you're only consuming 1,800, then your body might be going, barriers to food,
Starving, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so you're slowing down your metabolism if you're eating too little. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, we just got to play with those numbers a little bit, and yeah.
All right, awesome. Thank
All
you
right.
guys. I appreciate
Hey,
it.
Thank you.
Not mean to keep you late, man. Sorry about that.
All good. See you guys. See you
All
later.
right.
See you, bud.
So
All right.
We haven't put any food in there.
So
We get about 2,000 calories a day.
I just want to make sure that I was clear. Like, I don't mean to like come down on you
Oh,
in
no,
regards
you
to the
can come
nutrition,
back. No, you
but I just want you to understand that, like, at the end of the day, you have to be the one that takes responsibility, because you can't. You know, I love the quote from Rocky, right? Rocky Balboa, the movie, and he talks about, like, you know, like, you can't go pointing fingers because you ain't where you want to be, because it's him and you and you and you, and cowards do that, and that ain't you. Right? You're in control. You take responsibility. You take accountability. Right? And sure, ask your support system for help. Right? But at the end of the day, your wife wants you around. I guarantee it. You know? She loves you, and she wants to see you happy and healthy and the best version of yourself.
That's why he was
Right.
blackmailed into coming here in the first place.
And we love you too, man. So we want to see you living that best life.
I just want to do it the right way. I've tried many different things. I feel like too much information, and then you're by yourself, and then you're trying to figure out, and then, of course, part of me doesn't want to do it. He hears it every time I show
Yeah.
up. She hears it every morning. But anyways, I know it's the right thing, but it's just like my body is just not willing to follow. You know what I mean?
Cancel that.
Yeah.
So break that off,
Yeah.
right?
I just wrote it down. Yeah,
Your body is willing. It just takes it's hard in the beginning because it takes the discipline to override your feelings.
Yeah.
If you only went to work when you felt like going to work, what would happen? Your finances would be like dwindling away, right? If you only worked out when you felt like working out, you'd never work out. It's not about my feeling. It's about having the discipline to say, this is my non-negotiable. This is my time to work out, and nothing is going to interfere with that time. This is my time to prepare my food. Nothing is going to interfere with that time, because I'm sowing seeds.
So do you recommend food prep? Is that it? Like,
I love meal prep, which is why we started the meal prep company, right? We started Unbroken Nutrition Solutions because, just like Vartan just said, it's a lot of information. I get that. And I need to lose weight now. I need to get going on this now. I can't wait to be able to learn all this information before I start losing the weight. So what if we could actually get you eating the right foods in the right portions, take all the guesswork out of it, and so now you're losing weight, but you're learning along the way and developing habits for a lifetime along the way. That's what we want to do. Everything that we do.
No joke. Like training, he goes.
Yeah.
And you think, you're like, I gotta go and stuff, but this is genuinely the most I've ever seen you do. Our entire marriage. He goes. He's like, I gotta see Devin. It's my Devin time. It's been amazing. And you know what? You're not nearly as grumpy as you have been. Seriously.
Yeah.
Personality,
Confidence level
he's not grumpy.
Yeah.
To be real fair.
And I applaud you for taking that step, because that's the first step on the road of that long journey, right? What is it? Chinese proverb says that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, right? So that's just the first step. Recognize that there's a whole, you got the whole journey ahead of you, but you have your whole life ahead of you too, right? You don't have to get to your goal tomorrow. The weight didn't come on overnight. It's not going to come off overnight.
20 years.
Yeah. Guess what? It's not going to take 20 years to come off. But it does take consistency and not giving up. Most people dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in a year. But they really underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade. And that's not just with fitness, that's with your business, that's with your marriage, that's with everything, right? So once you get clear vision on where you're going, now you just run your race.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great way to close it out, guys.
Yeah.
I want to thank you all for coming, and we are here as a resource. So if you're interested in Unbroken Nutrition Solutions, you want to get signed up on meal prep, we'll get you taken care of. If you need help getting on the website and RSVPing for our sports psychology seminar in 2 weeks, I'll help you with that.
That is all in your mind. It's totally in your mind. That's what I believe. It's just in here. You've convinced